Joining me now, Congressman Keith Self from Texas's 3rd District, who along with Congressman Chip Roy from Texas 21 and Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama have launched the Sharia Free America Caucus. Congressman, in the monologue, I spoke to the numbers, the various acts that are here, but I'll hand it back to you. Why the need for this caucus as you and your fellow legislators see it?
Very well, your last segment, may I say. But we need to understand that Islam is a legal system under Sharia. Sharia is the law. It's a legal system with a thin patina of religion. This is a dominating force. They tend to dominate. They tend to try to dominate every culture they enter. Look at the UK, look at France, look at other nations. But the West is waking up. And even those nations that seem to be conquered already are starting to wake up. We need to wake up today. That's the intent of this caucus, to educate people of the danger. Because in the next 2 to 3 years, I think we're at a dangerous tipping point. Our debt is exploding. Sharia is exploding across America. We have got to fight back. And you mentioned it in your last segment that, frankly, they have said they will use our freedoms against us. They will use our judicial system against us. So we need to figure out how we are going to actually defend our freedom, our liberties, the way of life we have, the rule of law under which we live, our civilization that's based on individual liberty and the rule of law. How are we going to defend that against the encroachment of Sharia, which is rapidly expanding? Look, I represent one of the explosive areas of this in the United States, North Texas.
My guest, Congressman Keith Self from Texas's 3rd District. As he just said, he represents a district there. One of the questions on the table, Congressman, of course, whether it's some say reformation, I use that term at times, but Sharia law, incompatible with our Constitution. Are there those who would like to become an American? They can keep their religion. We have freedom of religion, but assimilate in a non-Sharia fashion into our society. And would that be a valuable partner if they exist in this effort?
If you're talking about what we can refer to as moderate Muslims or secular Muslims, absolutely, if they assimilate. The problem, David, is that under Sharia, if it takes hold, if it advances, they consider me an infidel, punishable by death. There is a tax that you can pay, but normally the jihadis don't let that happen today. But the moderate Muslims, they consider apostates. So the apostates, if the jihadis came and they did not re-assimilate into Sharia, would be under the same judicial fatwa that I would be, punishable by death. So we just need to understand that. Would they be able to maintain their moderate Muslim way of life and stances when the jihadis come? Or would they be under the same sentence I am as an infidel, that punishable by death?
When you look at the example recently, Congressman, the Ahmed who went after one of the terrorists and disarmed him in Australia at Bondi Beach, the amount of threat from other Muslims that a Muslim would stand up to violence, I don't know what was in his mind as he did that, but his actions saved lives. It brings the question of how are there enough, is it a number really for that matter, that will stand up and say, look, we don't want to be incompatible with the American Constitution. And to the pragmatic approach to it, if that's the case, then shouldn't they return to their own home countries?
Yeah, if you're not going to assimilate into our culture, if you're not going to understand that individual freedom and the rule of law are the greatest movers of peace and prosperity in the world, in the history of the world, then you need to go back to your own country. But look, no one goes back to tyranny. And that's what the tyrannical Muslim regimes in the Middle East and frankly spreading across the world they're tyranny. Nobody goes back to tyranny. Well, I guess there are a few, and I can think of a few, but most people do not want to live under tyranny. Once they taste freedom, once they taste the rule of law, that they are equal under the law, then they kind of like it.
So, what are the next steps? You've got Senate, you've got the House and the Senate caucus working together. What are the next steps? You've got these various House resolutions and Senate bill resolutions that I mentioned earlier.
Well, first of all, Senator Tuberville has supported our caucus, but he is not starting yet a caucus in the Senate. So this is a House caucus chaired by Chip Roy and myself. The next step is to start gathering momentum. And I just got a text from a member while we've been on this call to add him to the caucus. So right now we are gathering members of the caucus because in every fight you take, I'm a military guy, in every fight you take as many friends with you as you can. So we're going to be expanding the caucus numbers. Everyone that wants to join us will be welcomed. And then we will start to educate our colleagues in the House and educate the American people as to the dangers. It's going to be a huge job. This is a massively important job. David, I say there are two existential threats to our constitutional republic today. One is our rapidly growing debt. There is no doubt that is an existential threat to our self-government. The other, though, is the expansion, the encroachment of Sharia. And I think that is every bit as dangerous as our national debt. We have got to stop that and stop that soon.
The Tehran Incitement to Violence Act has already passed out of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, as I mentioned earlier, Congressman Self. And it's important, I think, for people to understand that what happens in Iran is a state-sponsored approach. They are the largest state sponsors and actors of terrorism around the world. And in educating others, are they understanding this?
No, they're not. First of all, Iran is Shia. It's one of the two major sects of Islam. It is the more warlike, more aggressive strain of Islam. And these five imams some put out the fatwas and some supported it. But the five imams I asked for sanctions on because they have fatwas, not normal fatwas under something they call mahareba, which means that you can torture the victim before you execute them. So there are mahareba fatwas against President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. That's unacceptable. When a nation state acting through imams actually has murder sanctioned against the President of the United States. And they supposedly have raised $20 million to support these fatwas. It's unconscionable, and it's something that we need to sanction.
Congressman, to wrap up here, the obvious opposition I have seen before over the decades, the cries of Islamophobia will come from the Democrats, from any in opposition. What do you say to those cries of Islamophobia?
It's a distraction. This is a totally different, incompatible civilization. We have got to stand firm. There will abuse come. We've got to stand firm. We've got to say that you will not replace our Western-based, individual freedom, rule of law-based civilization, the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution rules every inch of the United States. There should be absolutely no no-go zones where police cannot go. We don't want to have them Sharia dominate in cities, in counties, in states. We must stand firm. So this is a call to action to be courageous in the face of these cries that you're exactly right will come.
Congressman Keith Self, thank you very much for joining me this morning, sir. Good luck on the legislative trail.
Thank you so much.